I think biggest need so far, number one for me, has to be offensive guard. Come draft time next year, Bobby might not be here, Brooks might not be here, and it's all of a sudden, shit, we need a linebacker, we need a couple of linebackers.
Who do you think is going to play the most key role when we beat them on Sunday?
I like that, when we beat them on Sunday.
Welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks Rookie Watch podcast. I'm here tonight with James, and we're going to go over a little bit our performance with our rookies against the Cleveland Browns this week, which by all accounts was a proper test with a real high-ranked defense and some supercharged rookie offensive weapons and some defensive rookies that have really got the bit between their teeth and are not looking particularly like rookies anymore. So, James, how you doing, pal? You all good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Enjoyed the win eventually when we were allowed to with the last 30 seconds. Up until that point and first quarter aside, I didn't enjoy the game. But some very interesting performances from our rookies. An interesting week. And like I say, another big test, Ravens this week. So lots to get into.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like our second year guys and our rookie recruits this year are growing up very quick. I feel like that little dip we had into the playoffs last year was really good for our first year guys last year. They got a little taste of the playoffs and disappointment at the same time. They had some real highs and lows, and I think this year we've kind of hit the ground running in some respects, especially with some of their performances. I think a lot of it's due to sort of getting a real feel for not just the regular season, but a little bit of playoff, just to give them a little taste of what they're shooting for. I think that's really been a little key ingredient this year with the kick-on we've seen with some of them. So we're going to start off this podcast this evening, just both of us picking out a couple of things from our rookies, and I'm going to start this evening. Rather, I usually throw it straight to you, but I'm just going to throw out a little stat, as I often will. No team had ever had two rookies score a touchdown in a game before until we did it against the Cardinals a couple of weeks back. We enjoyed that stat so much that we thought we'd repeat it against the Browns. So the Seahawks were the first and the second team to ever do it. And looking at how consistent Jake Bobo is in some of those situations and just how accomplished he is with his toe tapping swag, I don't think we're going to see a stop to those touchdown moments for him. And with Njigba starting to really get the motor going and really sort of flourish and show us some of his skill set with not just the catches, but also some of the intricacies and things that he's now starting to put on. The real finer detail he's starting to apply to things. It seems to me a little bit like the rust is knocked off, and he's kind of bedding in a little bit, and the confidence is there. And I think that those two, for me, were a big part of the highlight for our rookies in that game. Got any thoughts on those two?
Bobo just continues to impress whenever his number's called. Loved seeing him going for that touchdown, and like we sort of mentioned on the main pod, it was, people might look at it and go, it was only a 3-yard little thing on the goal line, but actually very savvy, very confident player to stop in his tracks and cut back and not just carry on with probably what his assignment was to do, which was to try and bounce to the outside. No, he cuts back inside, trusts himself, trusts what he sees, just a confident player. And like you say, he's not your typical rookie in terms of coming out the draft as a 25-year-old, I think, is he? So he's an experienced young man. He's about as experienced as a young man as he can possibly get. This isn't a 19, 20-year-old, like a Jackson Smith-Njigba. Forgive me, I don't know how old he is, but he's in that kind of range. Just a wily old head that is still coming into his prime years as a rookie, and he's hitting the ground running straight away. Fantastic. And like you say about JSN, just feels like he's a lot of weight's being lifted off his shoulders, the franchise's shoulders, Pete and John's, or Shane Waldron's. Everyone feels like they've just kind of all right, okay, we can breathe a bit now. We've got him involved. We can stop asking about when are we going to see JSN. Right, we're showing him now. We've got him involved. We've figured him out, and now hopefully it's just going to be an upward trajectory from here. And this is the start of these last 2 weeks have really been the start of JSN's Seahawks career. And if it has been, I'm so excited for what's to come, because you can just tell he's so talented.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's not been. It didn't take long in training camp for people to really, really take serious notice of how polished he was as a rookie. People were looking at him thinking that is not a rookie wide receiver in training camp. It looked like one of the wily vets like Lockett or Metcalf had just rocked up to show off in camp. He was streets ahead, and it was not even fair on some people that were asked to guard him. So to see him sort of transition a bit into doing those things at the NFL level has been really good to see. And I was going to say, you took the words out of my mouth. You said about sort of taking that collective breath, because, okay, this is what we thought we were drafting, and it's now, it's not just in our heads or in college tape anymore. It is literally in NFL tape. He's done it for us, and I think that allows you to then go, okay, right, what has worked, what has not worked, where are these situations where it's really looked good, where are the situations where it hasn't. You can really sort of just start pulling it apart a little bit and start putting him in better positions to succeed. And I think that's just exactly what he needs, really. Be allowed to play to his strengths and be given plenty of ball to do it, and rather than lots of targets in the wrong situations that were forced and had people questioning whether these things were his fault, the interceptions and things, but in reality he just wasn't put in his usual spots. I do think his repertoire is going to expand dramatically as we go, because he's such a versatile player. I think you'll start seeing him in so many different weird and wonderful spots, and lots of great highlight reel stuff. I think we're going to see loads of that with him, which is really cool. But just let him get his feet wet doing the things he does. Is how I feel, and I feel like those things are happening now. So really happy for him, and I'm also taking a collective breath, because I was someone who was really celebrating that draft pick, and I feel like we're starting to get what we sort of signed up for.
Yeah.
So who would be your pick, offense or defense? You picked. Who's your big one from that game?
I'm going offense. I'm going for my guy that I've been championing since we drafted him, Zach Charbonnet. Only 5 carries, but 53 yards, a 10.6 average carry. Ridiculous, first down per carry. And I thought he really started to show what he's got in his wheelhouse in terms of, I can't remember what down it was or what point in the game, but that run that he had at midfield where he cut back again and then bounced to the right, showing great vision, great sort of lane awareness, open field awareness. That I was been saying on the pod that just watch him. He's a bit shifty than you think he is, and he's starting to show that. Excellent on pass protection there as well. So you've got not just a fantastic little running back there. You've got a guy that when we lost one of our better pass protecting running backs in recent years, in Travis Homer in free agency, I think that's a really key kind of component that he's got to his game, because they don't really ask Ken to do it, so I'm not sure whether Ken can sort of pass block. He probably can. He can probably, put his all into it, but whether he's as that effective, maybe not. Maybe just more of a chip blocker kind of guy, and then you get him out on a little wheel route or whatever. Whereas Zach looks like he can really just plant his feet and properly pass protect, which is a big key factor when you've lost someone like Travis Homer. So
it was enormous on that play as well. It was a big moment, and it was a great touchdown.
Yep. So big shout out to him. I think he's finally starting to come good now. A couple of back-to-back good weeks. He's really starting to get a feel for this offense and working his way in. And do you know what? He didn't play any. Forgive me. I don't know whether he got 1 or 2, but I can't remember him making any actual plays on defense. But I will give a shout out to Jerrick Reed. We've kind of sort of just dropped his name in every now and then on Rookie Watch, just saying, keep an eye on Jarek Reed. He's actually quietly doing really well. And I can't remember if it was myself or whoever it was on Rookie Watch that kind of said, he looks like the special teams captain of the future going forward. And interestingly enough, just before we came on, I saw a tweet from Brian Nemhauser, a Hawk blogger, saying that one Seahawk rookie that doesn't get much attention is Jarek Reed, and he actually leads the NFL in special team tackles per game so far this season. So
yeah,
it's like what we said. If you can find your special teams captain, a really valuable player where we got him, it's a really, really useful pick and a really, really good return on a late day 3 pick. And like you say, he keeps making plays like that. It will only be a matter of time before he gets more meaningful snaps on the defense. So just keep quietly plugging away, Jarek Reed, and I think you'll get your chance sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of Diggs, J Love, and Adams. So we're only ever one injury away from him getting some snaps in the so there must be a real palpable sort of feeling with him that I'm not very far away, and I'm doing good stuff, and I just need to wait my time. We actually signed Jonathan Sutherland again to the practice squad this week, who was he was injured reserve, wasn't he? I think, and in preseason, and we paid off like an injury settlement and waived him, and then we've got him back. So that's another very talented safety that we could end up utilizing at some point during the season. Touch wood, we don't have to, because I'd like to see Jamal Adams injury free. I'd like to see Quandre Diggs, there all season, and I've been enjoying some of the stuff J Love's done as well. But that's quite nice to have behind, because Sutherland was a guy that Pete really, really got into in preseason and rookie camps, and he said that he'd seen a lot in him that he thought was seriously coachable. So he might be someone that gets the odd elevation and things as well. So definitely one to sort of keep an eye on there as well with Sutherland. But Reed has been doing a stellar job on everything we've asked him to do, and he's certainly put himself in a prime position to make an impact if elevated. And let's not forget, Ryan Neal spent a lot of time on practice squads, and when his opportunity finally came up, he took it with absolutely both hands. So could see a similar thing with history repeating itself. So we will move on to section 2 of Rookie Watch this week, and we're going to be looking forward a little bit to the draft next year. I think with the trade window now shutting and our acquisition of a defensive lineman, which for a lot of people was their biggest need in next year's draft, I'm interested to see, James, where you would look to use our first round pick, and not just with the Leonard Williams trade affecting what we do in the first round. It'll obviously dramatically affect what we do in the second round. You can answer that question whether you think we'll trade back or not, but and maybe pick up a second, but we don't have a second anymore, certainly not our own second. So we'll start it off. If you want to just name with the first position you name being our highest priority in the draft, and the fifth one you name being the least important of the top 5 positional needs. What do you think?
Okay. I think biggest need so far, number 1 for me, has to be offensive guard. I look at our interior of the offensive line, and I'm just not sold on it. And then you look at the contract situations of the guys that are on the offensive guard positions in the interior. Phil Haynes only signed a 1-year extension, so he's a free agent next year. Damian Lewis is a free agent next year. And I think Evan Brown's only signed a 1-year contract with us as well, so I'm pretty sure he's a free agent next year as well. I know he plays centre at the minute, but we signed him as a potential guard, can play guard as well. And with all due respect to those 3, other than Evan Brown at centre, who I would extend, Phil Haynes, Damian Lewis, just don't do it for me. In my opinion, Damian Lewis is way too up and down, and Phil Haynes has never quite grasped his opportunities to become a starter, and he has had opportunities. He's had runs in the team. So for me, I think when you've got bookends at tackle that you've got with Cross and Lucas, go and load up on the interior. Don't let such a talented offensive tackle pairing go to waste by by neglecting the interior of the offensive line. Go and put a hell of an offensive line together, and we can really protect, whether it's Gino or whoever in the future, going forward. And you see it so often, the undoing of teams late in the playoffs having poor offensive lines. Cincinnati is one for an example. Far too talented of a team to be wasted on a poor offensive line. So that's the one.
Yeah. Okay, that's your highest, your big priority then. That's an interesting one, and I think you don't have to look much further than the Browns game to see what a good interior offensive line can do for your running game. Because whilst we've been very good at stopping the run, they were putting our defensive line where they wanted them and then running it where they wanted to put their runner. So there's not just a protect Gino point to make there. There's also a get the best out of Charbonnet and possibly Ken situation too there. So I can absolutely see why you're saying guard is a high prior. So what would be your second highest priority?
Probably inside linebacker, maybe linebacker in general, but with a specific focus on the inside. Obviously, if Bobby continues to play the way he plays, you'd imagine they would offer him an extension. Now, whether Bobby is a very cerebral guy, whether he says, "Do you know what? I don't want another year. I'm happy now." I do a bit of a, I get the sense that's what a Lockett's going to do in the future. You see other players doing it before, just saying, "You know what? No, there is an offer on the table for me there, but I don't need it. I don't need to play another year. I'm happy. I'm injury free. I'll go into retirement now healthy." So if that happens, then obviously it becomes a major need. Jordan Brooks, as well, as we well know, might get franchise tag, but that's still only then another year of Jordan Brooks, and then you've got to come to a contract discussion again. No real long-term kind of solidification there. Devin Bush hasn't quite worked yet as a 3-down starter. He plays in a bit of a rotation, so he hasn't quite worked yet. And then behind that, you're looking at guys like Rattigan below, and it's just it's not great really. So I think depth-wise, potential losing a veteran like Bobby in the next year or two, maybe. Brooks, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Touch wood, but an ACL injury is potentially a ticking time bomb. You never hope for it, but it's that nature of injury. So I think you've just got to. It would be really silly for the Seahawks to not just secure the long-term future, because, like you say, fans might think, well, we've got Bobby, we've got Jordan Brooks, we're fine, but come draft time next year, Bobby might not be here, Brooks might not be here, and it's all of a sudden, shit, we need a linebacker, we need a couple of linebackers. So I think the linebacker is quite a big need as well. So that's my number 2.
Good choice. I think that's a smart choice. So position number 3 out of your top 5. What's the next one?
Now we're starting to get a little bit sticky, because there's a few positions I could go. Do you know what? I am going to go with tight end at number 3. Not a sexy pick, not a sexy position, not a position that the Seahawks particularly value. But like we say, Will Dissly. We need one. Will Dissly contracted through until 2024, so we've got one more year of Will Dissly. But then after that, his contract's up for renewal. Noah Fant is up for renewal in the summer, and then I think Corey Parkinson's might be up for renewal in the summer as well. I think his rookie contract's coming to an end. Yep. You could get him back on the cheap. I know that, but it feels like tight end is we're maybe starting to potentially run a bit dry over the next year or two with players leaving, it's not a position that we value, but in terms of the schemes that we run with these 13 personnels, quite often it's a key feature of Shane Waldron's system, running heavy tight end sets. Well, we've got to have tight ends under contract and decent ones under contract to be able to perform that. So I think it might actually be becoming more of a valued position by Seattle, so long as Waldron is the offensive coordinator. It might not be in the past, but we've seen since Waldron's come in, he loves the tight ends coach, former tight end coach himself. He knows the value of a tight end. So I think tight end is going to be my number 3.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So far, all 3 of these I think are in my top 4 positions of highest need. So what is your 4th pick for position here?
4th pick. I will go with. We don't have too many holes thinking about, but in terms of a 4th, I'll go safety.
Yep.
Quandre Diggs only contracted through 2024, so he's a free agent in 2025. So you've only got potentially one more year of Diggs, and he's already over the 30 barrier. Jamal, forgive me, I don't know how long left on his deal, but 2 more years with Jamal. Okay, so not massively long into the future. 2 years comes around very quickly when you think that come next season, Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross will be in the 3rd year of their rookie deals. That shows you how quick time goes. So 2 years is nothing in the NFL, especially with someone like Jamal, who we know about his injury history as well. Hasn't really proven since he's come to Seattle that he can play a full season. And it's a massive part of our defense, and it's a position that we value. It's a position that historically we sort of love and cherish, and put a lot of weight on the safety positions. So I think whether it's free safety, strong safety, I think there's a potential need for both. Just safety general. Julian Love again, has done okay, but. I feel like you could potentially do better if a Jamal and Diggs wasn't here. You might need to do better than a Julian Love. So yeah, I'll go safety.
Okay, and your 5th position?
5th position, quarterback.
Okay.
Again, like I say, I like Geno. I think he's doing enough. Did enough last season and is doing just enough so far this season to sort of warrant him, playing through his contract at the very least. But beyond that, I mean, how old Geno's about 33 now, is he? 34, 33, something like that, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's no spring chicken, and he has, in terms of his stats wise, his passer rate and stuff like that hasn't been as good so far as it was last season. Now, obviously, that's because teams have got more tape on him. We've played some good defenses through the first 8 weeks of the season, and lots of different mitigating factors, especially with that offensive line being as banged up as it has been. And I just think you always have to have an eye on the future at the quarterback position. We know this, that all of a sudden things can change. We all thought we were set for another few years with Russ, and all of a sudden that kind of explodes and he wants out. Things can just change. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Geno, because I don't think he's not going to be the one to turn his back on Seattle. I think Seattle will turn its back on Geno. So you've always just got to have smart. It's what smart franchises do, don't they? Never rest on their laurels, never rest on kind of being set at a position. It's always looking ahead to, okay, we might be set right now, but 2-3 years down the line we might not be. So is it time to maybe take a flyer, not a high pick, because I don't think you need to burn a 1st round pick on a quarterback this year, because if you're doing that, then they either need to be playing in their rookie year or sitting maximum for 1 year.
Yeah.
So maybe next year, in terms of 2025, maybe then you start looking, but late round flyer on a QB.
Well, you lead us in perfectly to the second part of this, and I'm going to ask you to tell me which. I mean, obviously, you've graded them in terms of importance, but just because you think a guard is the highest need doesn't necessarily mean you're spending a 1st round pick and paying 1st round pick rookie money to a guard. So, which round would you be picking a guard?
1st round. Absolutely, 100%.
No, okay, no,
1st round.
Absolutely fine.
I was a big fan of the idea of taking that Osiris Torrance out of Florida last year, and I think he's had a really decent start to his rookie season as well. So I've been kind of on the offensive guard. Let's get a proper guard in for a season or two now. It's a position that we just don't draft highly. I mean, I cannot remember the last 1st round offensive guard we took. You could maybe make a case for Jermaine Ifedi, but he played tackle as well as guard. And then that didn't work out fucking very well either. Beyond that, it's like a James Carpenter who's it's not great. But like I've said, I do not want to see Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas go to waste behind a lack of investment on the interior of the offensive line. So go and get a stud offensive guard in the 1st round, one of the best top 2 guards available. Go and get him, and our offensive line will quickly transcend into a top 5, top 10 offensive line in the NFL.
Okay, well, I really like it.
Good.
I really like it. So I'm gonna I'm going to ask you to predict your linebacker next, your interior linebacker. But before we go any further, I just want to let you know that the five positions you picked up on, 4 of them were the same as me. I didn't name safety. I named edge. I thought with Darrell Taylor in a contract year, that wouldn't be an edge if we renew him. But if he does go, I think I'd be picking up an edge as well. So you picked very similar positions to me. I also had guard, and I think for me, I'd be spending a third or a fourth. And I know you don't like that, but I'm going off the fact that it's not a position that we typically pay, and it's not a particular position we're particularly good at either. So potentially there's a bit of correlation there that it makes a bit of sense. But we have a sort of loose structure on what we tend to pay with the Seahawks that allows us to play our style of football. And granted, that's moved a little bit with Clint Hurts, take over on defense. There's been a little bit of a shift, which sort of, with the way things are going money wise. I can't remember a time that we had a situation where we picked up 2 free agent D linemen or an edge and a D lineman, and then traded for another. Draymond Jones, Nwosu, and Williams weren't just investments in this year. They're looking to tie those 3 down for 3 years or so. And when you do that, you'll end up with, it's going to be, I'd predict around 140 million between 3 guys. 130, 140 million between 3 guys over their contract terms. So that shows a bit of a shift in. So maybe I'm completely wrong by saying we don't pay guard, so I wouldn't pick one with my first pick. But yeah, I'm gonna just wanted to add in there. I had guard down and I used a third or a fourth on it.
Fair enough.
Interior linebacker, where would you be spending there? Third, maybe?
Yeah, as high as you can get. I think linebackers, the good ones are often sort of early rounds, and I know that might sound a bit of a silly thing to say, but you look at certain other positions like a receiver, and I think it's easier to find sort of deeper receiver classes, deeper sort of hidden free agent gems, and late round wide receivers. I think quite a lot of the top linebackers are early draft picks. You can make a few exceptions here and there, but I think the one of the rule of thumbs with a linebacker more so than most positions is that normally there's a pretty noticeable difference between the early round linebackers and the late round linebackers, in my opinion, that have success in the NFL. So it feels like it'd be a much safer option to go higher with a linebacker and try and steal one in later in the draft. So yeah.
Well, interestingly, with interior linebackers, they tend to not be. If they go in the first round, they go late in the first round typically. We saw Jack Campbell go this year to Detroit with their second first rounder, I think.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because they took Gibbs with the first one and shocked people.
Yeah.
I think, and then Campbell. Either way. But typically you don't see that. And what tends to happen with the linebackers is because they get sort of pushed down, you end up getting really talented first round type linebackers slightly dropping out of the first round into the second round, and then you get a good deal on a good player over the first 4 years in the NFL. So that third round bit there for linebackers becomes a bit of a value sweet spot. So you'll end up with people like Damas Johnson and Shmal Mondon, both from Georgia. Cedric Gray, another linebacker I really like. You'll see them sort of moving into right at the middle of the meat in the draft where we've got a couple of picks. So I really think that we might do something there. So I had interior linebacker in the third round for that reason. I think we both agree on that being a really sensible way to approach our roster building in the off season.
Yeah.
So tight end's the next one that we both have. Where are you looking to spend on a tight end? This would be interesting.
It's day 3. I don't particularly.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll go any higher than day 3 on a tight end. Just don't value it enough. Like I'm saying, even though we do sort of in this system, but in the draft wise, I just think they'll be sort of more caught up on more sort of higher skill positions than a tight end, like a linebacker, like other offensive line positions and stuff like that. So yeah, tight end kind of fifth round pick, maybe.
Okay.
maybe see if you can get like you're kind of saying with those linebackers that it kind of gets congested, and you might be able to find maybe a late second, early third round standard tight end in the fifth, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's quite a few little gems there that we could pick up that are more blocking type tight ends, and I think that's, with, like you said earlier, with lots of 12 and 13 personnel this year. I know that's in part due to a banged up offensive line, but they've obviously chalked up a lot of plays for those looks, and there's no reason we can't reuse those, going forward.
That's the thing. We don't massively need receiving tight ends, do we? With the receiving options we've got from wide receiver, having a receiving tight end isn't a massive. It's more about the blocking.
Well, I'll make this point to you. If we lost Will Disley this summer, and we took a really, really good blocking tight end in the 5th or 6th round and put it in there, I mean, how many actual receptions has Disley had this year? I think it's 1 catch, isn't it?
Yeah, he's been injured for the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah, and we're not going to miss his production as a pass catcher at this point.
No.
If we've got Fant and Parkinson, so I think that's a good shout. Late round tight end, and take a guy that can really block, and that was similar for me. I also had 5th on that. So safety was your next pick.
Yes.
You looking back end, or you're looking for more of a sort of ball hawking sort of playmaker, right? To sort of move into the void left in the up and coming years with Diggs and Adams, right? That's your thinking.
Yeah, it's a bit of a. I don't really know where you go with it in terms of. I don't think they need to go too high because, like you say, yes, you've still got a bit of security for another year or two with Jamal and Diggs and Julian Love. So it's not a pressing need right now. So they don't need to go sort of 4th, 5th, maybe not even the 6th. Just again another 7th rounder that you've got a lot of tangibles with, like a Jarek Reed. That at this moment in time, all it needs to be is a decent backup with moldable traits that when it comes to Jamal's time or Diggs' time, Julian Love's, whenever, like you said, it's what we think is going to happen with Jarek Reed, isn't it? That maybe in 2 years' time, that might be a really good safety there that we've been able to mold into a guy who can fill in the next couple of years and just do that again, see if you can find another one of those kind of prospects for me.
Yeah, and I think you need to look at the fact that Tariq Woolen will get a contract, and Witherspoon will get a contract. We've got 3 guys on the defensive line that we're looking to pay. We've got Boye Mafe, who's going to need a contract. There's that defense has got some players on it that we would hope will become cornerstones for years on our franchise.
Trey Brown as well. Trey Brown can't have long left on his rookie deal, can he?
Yeah, well, he was the same year as Eskridge and Scythe. So he's in the contract year as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. There are guys who have balled out for us in their rookie contracts that will need paying. So that changing of the guard at safety does seem like a way that we start to realise some funds to put money back into those guys. So I think safety with a 3rd or 4th was what I had down. I think it sounds like you're thinking the same sort of way there. And then I had QB as well. And I would be using my 1st rounder on a QB here if the right guy if the right guy's there, and there are 2 right guys for me. I'm not a Bo Nix guy, but I am a JJ McCarthy and I am a Michael Penix. So if where we're picking those guys are there, I honestly think that is a sit behind Gino 1 year and then thank Gino for everything he's done, and hand over the mantle to either of those 2. That's where I'm at. I'm not banging the drum for Gino to be replaced. I'm just saying that with a really deep quarterback class, there's a couple of names that I'd be looking at in each round and saying if that guy's there for that pick, I think we just do it. And I think in the 1st round there's a couple that really could be the future of our franchise at that position. What do you? I know you did, and I only went first there and said that because you kind of ruled out using the 1st rounder. But I thought I'll give my take on that as well, because I really do think some guys could fall to us there and be seriously good.
Yeah, I just think someone like maybe a Penix could sit for a year and just. I think with Penix is He does turn over the ball a little bit too often at times, makes a few kind of misinformed throws, trying to be a little bit too trigger happy at times. And I think a year worth of coaching on the sidelines as a backup QB could really help eradicate that from his game. I think if you were to throw him straight into the NFL week one, I think you'd see him probably causing quite a few turnovers, throwing quite a few picks, and you might run the risk of knocking his confidence a bit. So I'd say with him, he'd probably going to need a year. So maybe a Penix. I think a Bo Nix is probably going to want to start straight away, and I think same with like a Drake May, and obviously with a Caleb Williams, they're going to want to start straight away as well. So I think in terms of those first round guys, I think Penix is probably the only one that would probably say, you know what, yeah, I'll be happy sitting for a year. I can understand why you'd want to sit me for a year. For me, like I say, I think give Gino to the end of his contract at this moment in time. For me, this is where I'm happy with Gino. Give him to the end of his contract, then he'll be sort of 35-ish in that kind of bracket. And then if you want to take a quarterback this year in kind of like the late sort of 6th, 7th round, I don't know, maybe like a Sam Hartman might go undrafted, but yeah, like a Sam Hartman or like a KJ Jefferson or someone like just someone who you might sneak in the 6th or 7th round. Because I look at Drew Lock's contract and I'm like, are we really going to keep paying him that much to be our backup? Not in my opinion. So you get rid of him in the offseason and all of a sudden you need a backup quarterback. It might be Holton Ahlers, but you might think, you know what, in the 6th or 7th round, forget Holton Ahlers, we can get a much better backup quarterback for a 6th, 7th round pick who may potentially might strike gold with and might surprise a lot of us. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then I'd go 2025, I'd go first round quarterback.
Interesting with that. There's a few in next year, and there's a few QBs in this draft that may still opt into next year. There's a lot of possibilities there, but the point of this exercise was to kind of try and envisage how our roster might look when we start doing Rookie Watch next year and what positions we might be tracking. I hope there's a QB in there that has a potential to take over in a year or two's time, but we'll see. But yeah, interesting that we picked similar positions and neither of us went defensive line since the acquisition of Leonard Williams. That's very interesting. Okay, so we'll move over to section 3, which will be our final section of Rookie Watch this week. And we're going to look a little bit ahead to the Ravens game. Now, the Ravens have got a very similar stat line so far with their defense. And the amount of points they've conceded, the amount of yards they've given up, the strengths and weaknesses are quite similar. Who do you think is going to have, out of our rookies and second years, who do you think is going to play the most key role when we beat them on Sunday?
I like that, when we beat them on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'll package them together, Tariq and Spoon, because I look at these Baltimore receiving options. We know all about Mark Andrews, but this Flowers is pretty electric too, and he's given me. I'm not going to lie, he's given me a few sleepless nights this week thinking about can we cope with Zay Flowers? Are we going to be able to cope with Zay Flowers? And then Mark Andrews, and then Lamar taking off. It's an explosive offense, and I think more so. I mean, you can maybe pass Mark Andrews on to more so can the linebackers cover him, maybe, because he's more kind of, in that sort of 15, 20 yards, middle of the field kind of thing. He's rarely kind of being hit on the outside, but Zay Flowers certainly. And then you've got OBJ in there, well, who's desperate for some targets. And I think after his little outburst last week, you always see it. They have an outburst, and then all of a sudden the next week they start getting more targets to keep them happy. So, he's still a great route runner, still a great player. So they've got some excellent receiving options. So for me, these cornerbacks, Devin Witherspoon, after coming off what was a fairly quiet week for Devin Witherspoon standards so far, we need him to have another, not that he played bad, just stat line, no interception, no sack, just a couple of tackles. We need him to have another proper Devin Witherspoon game. We need Tariq after his first interception of the season, bit of confidence back, ball back in his hands, making a turnover, making a big play. He's got that big play feeling back. We're going to need them next week if we're going to have any chance, because I'm not too worried about the running game for the Ravens. Other than that, I think you're probably going to go maybe offensive line with how good their defense is potentially as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think my shout was going to be it was going to be Reek, but the reason for that was we just saw a game where he was more heavily targeted. I think he had more targets on him in one game against the Browns than he had in the whole back half of the season. Last year, there was more targets for him in that because he became a no-fly zone last year, and that was partly to do with the lack of belief in the cornerback on the other side, because who's Mike Jack, and Tariq would have made a little name for himself early on, but Witherspoon's a guy who's made a name for himself very quickly too, and we started to see Reek getting targeted, which was a little bit odd for him, I think, because he'd got used to being a no-fly zone, but he put himself in position to really make two interceptions in that game. And I think we've all seen the replay, and still, I think some of us still scratching our heads how he didn't catch the second one, to be honest, because it was just he's made much harder catches for us than the ones that were presented to him. But I think in this game we're going to see some gunslinging from Lamar Jackson, and they're going to be in the game. Our corners are going to be in the game. Our secondary is going to be in the game, and he very much needs to be on. He needs to be on it. And I think it all comes down to how well we contain. Because if we stop him sort of snapping off the first downs, when they're third and 6, 3rd and 5, using his legs. If we can contain that, which we've been bad at this year, we're good with running backs. We're not good with mobile quarterbacks. So if we contain that and we force him into the air, it becomes a very key game for our second-year corner and our first-year corner. But as you've said, Reek, I'm going to go with Charles Cross, because he was exceptional against the Browns. He was truly, truly exceptional, and he's very quickly become. And I'm going to use the word cornerstone again, but your left tackle should always be the vital part of that offensive line. The centre and the left tackle are the communicator and the key piece protecting the blind side of your quarterback. Cross is phenomenally consistent, and I feel like edge rushers don't relish that matchup, because he's brilliant with his feet. He watches when he gets control of you. He watches you all the way through the snap. Even when it looks like he's beaten, he readjusts with his feet. He's just so good. And their pass rush is very noteworthy indeed. So he'll have another game on his hands. I think he'll be quite key.
Do you know what it was as well with Cross is he put to bed my kind of, has he got the stamina issue as well? Because if you can go a full game against Myles Garrett and not allow him to get anywhere near Geno, really, with how good Myles Garrett is, because that was the thing, in his rookie season, Lucas was just, he was running on absolute sort of gas, limitless gas all game, all rookie season. He never seemed to tire at all. Whereas Cross, you could start to see him later in games start to maybe show signs of fatigue. Like I said, Lucas is more of that kind of athletic offensive tackle. Charles Cross is athletic, but he's a bit more of a stockier kind of guy. Whereas Lucas is just, there's no kind of, there's no excess weight on him. He's pure muscle, pure streamlined offensive tackle.
Yeah, he's a brute. He's an absolute brute.
He's a brute, and I was kind of thinking, that's might only be Charles Cross's Achilles heel if he's going to have one. Is his kryptonite going to be his stamina? And then to start this season when he's been healthy, and then to go back up straight, throw you straight back in after you come off a bit of an injury layoff to go against Myles Garrett and pass that test, it's pretty darn impressive. So he's put to bed any concerns that I had.
I'm also so pleased for him, because he wasn't the LT1 in that draft. He was LT3, I think. He was third. I think Ike Ekwonu went off.
And Evan Neal, wasn't it?
Evan Neal, yeah. They both went off the board. Look at us. Look at us with our knowledge. Look at that. He wasn't LT1, but I think statistically right now, with the amount of snaps he's played, the amount of sacks he's given up, his win rate in pass protection is phenomenal. Honestly, if you were redrafting now, I think he's LT1.
Every chance, yeah.
I've actually got a website that does that, so I will, before next Rookie Watch, I'll have a look and see where he is currently positioned amongst the tackles. But I'm pretty sure he's still a top 10 pick, and I think he'd be LT1. But yeah, I'm so impressed with Cross. So next week we'll be back. It'll be either us two or we'll have Pez with us, and we'll go over redrafting next week. We started it with the first 3 picks we had last year. Next week we're going to go over picks, our 3rd round, 4th round, and 5th round picks. I think we had 2 in the 5th, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we'll do all 4. We'll do all 4 of those next week, hopefully with Pez as well, which will be a lot of fun because last time it was, and I'm sure we upset Pez with some of the decisions we made on that occasion. So that's to look forward to next week. We'll obviously break down what happened against the Ravens. We're obviously quite confident now, but we'll break down what happened, and we'll be looking ahead to a game against the Commanders, minus all their best players that they've just wanted to trade away, apparently. So lots to look forward to this week and next week. But for now, that will be all for Rookie Watch, and I'll say go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
See you next week.